At the beginning of the 1830s, nearly 125,000 Native Americans lived on millions of acres of land in Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, and Florida, land their ancestors had occupied and cultivated for generations. By the end of the decade, very few natives remained anywhere in the southeastern United States. Working on behalf of white settlers who wanted to grow cotton on the Indians' land, the federal government forced them to leave their homelands and walk thousands of miles to a specially designated Indian territory across the Mississippi River. This difficult and sometimes deadly journey is known as the Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears was caused by Jacksonian Democrats wanting to expand further west, so treaties with each of the Indian tribes were ignored and land boundaries were redrawn time and time again in favor of expanding whites. Despite the formation of the Society for Propagating the Gospel among Indians in 1787, Andrew Jackson became president and decided to build a systematic approach to Indian removal, no matter what that entailed. Some Indians, like the Cherokees in Georgia, abandoned some of their ways of life to try and assimilate into white culture in order to keep their land before more drastic measures like the Trail of Tears took place. In 1828, Georgia declared that the Cherokee Tribal Council was illegal and only the Georgian legislature could regulate Indian affairs. The Cherokee Tribal Council repeatedly appealed to the Supreme Court, who sided on their behalf, but President Jackson ignored the Supreme Court decision and kept expanding west and ignored the council. In order to make the expansion legal while also helping the Indians with their problem of a lack of land and a lack of cultural depletion, Jackson encouraged Congress to adopt the Removal Act of 1830. The act established a process whereby the United States could grant land west of the Mississippi River to Indian tribes that agreed to give up their homelands. As incentives, the law allowed the Indians financial and material assistance to travel to their new locations and start new lives, and guaranteed that the Indians would live on their new property under the protection of the United States government forever. With the act in place, Jackson and his followers were free to persuade, bribe, and threaten tribes into signing removal treaties and leaving the Southeast. In 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act. It moved more than 100,000 Indians living east of the Mississippi River to reservations west of the Mississippi. The 5 civilized Indian tribes that include the Seminoles, Chickasaws, Cherokees, Creeks, and Choctaws tribes were ironically hardest hit. Black Hawk, who led Sioux and Fox Braves from Illinois and Wisconsin, resisted the eviction, which led to the Black Hawk War in 1832. The Seminoles in Florida retreated to the Everglades, fighting for several years until they retreated deeper into the Everglades for ensuing war, where they were crushed. Due to the treacherous seizure of their leader by the United States. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was established in 1836 to govern future relations with the Native Americans on reservations. This marked the end of the problems with the Native Americans and the beginning of unlimited westward expansion. The Trail of Tears still affects people today because tribes can no longer speak their native languages, culture was lost, and the alcohol and drug dependencies on Indian reservations today are very high, while the number of college attendees among the Indian people are very low. The Trail of Tears created a never-ending tension between the Indian tribes and the United States government, which will probably never be forgiven.